Hello everyone. First of all, I would like to thank the Defense Secretary, Mr. John Healey, for visiting Norway. We met the third time now. First hours after I got the position, we had a video conference about Ukraine. Then we met in Brussels, then in Munich, and now here at the visit in Norway. So we're getting very close. The United Kingdom has been Norway's closest and most important European ally for decades and remains so to this day. Our countries have truly had a long-standing and extensive defense and security cooperation that we deeply value. Over the past years, both Norway's and United Kingdom's security environment has deteriorated in the wake of Russia's brutal and devastating full-scale invasion of Ukraine. War is raging in Europe. These are demanding times, and as close allies, it is crucial that we are able to adopt our joint strategic partnership to this new and lasting security political change. Therefore, we have met here today to announce that we are starting to work on a new ambitious defense agreement between our two countries. We commit to develop and strengthen our defense and security cooperation even further. We will also step up our commitment to work together to strengthen Euro-Atlantic security in NATO, the Joint Expeditionary Force, the Northern Group, and other multilateral forums. It is our shared intent to reach a higher level of military cooperation in order to enhance the operational capabilities of both nations and ensure a higher degree of interoperability across all domains in our proximate surroundings and beyond. It is also our shared intent to strengthen our cooperation on securing critical undersea infrastructure. Despite Russia's focus on its war in Ukraine, Russia continues to place great value on its capacities meant for undersea sabotage. Over many years, Russia has continued to fund and develop military capacities meant for undersea sabotage, targeting Western critical infrastructure on deep waters. The United Kingdom and Norway knows that Russia is willing to utilize all means at its disposal in order to undermine Western cohesion and support to Ukraine. And we are concerned that Russia's decision calculus for damaging Western undersea critical infrastructure may be changing. Any activities that damage seabed infrastructure, including undersea cables, especially during periods of heightened tensions, risk understandings and misperceptions that could lead to unintended escalation. Both our nations place great effort in protecting our critical underwater infrastructure, and through decades of cooperation, we know that together we stand strong. The visit of RFA Proteus to Bodø today is a signal of our joint commitments to safeguard our critical undersea infrastructure. Both RFA Proteus and KV Bison, lying next to us, are equipped with the Kongsberg Hugin uncrewed underwater vehicle, which is capable of surveilling underwater infrastructure bound to extreme depths. By using our advanced capabilities to monitor our underwater infrastructure, we are able to send a message to anyone who may intend to cause harm to our critical national infrastructure that we will see you. Thank you. John.
Thank you, Tori. Good afternoon, everyone. I have to say it's a special pleasure to have spent so much time with Mr. Sandvik in your first 2 weeks in the job, but it underlines the strength of the security and military relationship of our two countries, and the fact that we have come together from the conference rooms of NATO and Munich to the High North and here in Bodø is a a special sign of what is a deep and close military relationship that is getting deeper and closer every day. We are the two nations, after all, as you said, the two European nations that for decades have protected the northern flank of NATO together. And this is now a once-in-a-generation opportunity, the chance to deepen further that. So we have today signed an agreement, a declaration that we will work now to forge a deep, ambitious new defence agreement, and we'll do that by the summer. That will cover the need both countries and others have to protect our critical underwater infrastructure. Work we're doing together here on Proteus, our UK ship, and Bison, your Norwegian ship, moored alongside. We will bring our militaries closer together, and we've spoken to our UK commandos and Royal Marines that are exercising with yours in the High North in Norway, not just exercising, but beginning now joint training for missions. And we will also bring our industries closer together. And it's a sweet circle that this UK RFA ship, Proteus, was built, of course, in Norway. And on Ukraine, we've said as two European nations that we will step up further the support we give to Ukraine. Ukraine is still fighting. We must keep them in the fight. We must try and keep them strong to secure that peace for the long term. And as two nations, Norway and Britain, we jointly lead the maritime coalition of a dozen nations that is supporting Ukraine, especially with maritime power, and helping them build up their own power for the future. So finally, this is the talk of Europe stepping up to support Ukraine, stepping up for European security. This is the talk of those European nations in action here, Norway and the UK together.
Okay, so then we'll have a question from the NRK.
Norwegian Broadcasting, Minister Healey. It has always been a deep relationship between Norway and Great Britain. What is so special about this, can I ask?
It's a good question, because you're right. I mentioned the British Army commandos and Marines that have exercised here with your Norwegian forces for 50 years. What's happening there is a sign of what's happening across the military. So moving from exercises to joint training to missions that we may be ready to conduct together. Maritime, our navies, not just becoming increasingly interoperable, but potentially interchangeable, setting new standards for other navies, particularly as we look at the threats in the High North. And our industries, capable of doing so much more together, and we will in the future. And finally, one of the reasons that I wanted to join Tore here in Norway was also to remind people that we look at the Russian war in Ukraine, but Russia remains a threat beyond Ukraine, and Russia's aggression is not confined to Ukraine. And we have to meet that challenge and confront that together.
Thank you. You always said you want to strengthen NATO. How come? Yeah.
To strengthen NATO, first of all, we have to support Ukraine. Our freedom, Europe's freedom and security lies now in Ukraine. That's the first thing. Second, we acknowledge that Europe has to step up. We have to do more for our own security. We have to spend more on the defense budget. In Norway, we have this long-term plan, now reaching up towards 3%, but also to taking more responsibility in our maritime areas. And also, we have to strengthen the bonds between European allies, both to work together to standardize more of the equipment we have to buy, and also, as John mentioned, to make our industries work closely together to step up the capacity in the production of defense spending and material. So this is the most important part of strengthening NATO. But Europe has to step up. But we also need to say that US is still an important part of this. So we will continue to have a close cooperation with the US, especially in the High North. This is the security guarantee goes either way. It's important for the US. It's important for US own security that we are the ears and the eyes in the High North for NATO. And it's of course important for us the security guarantee that US gives us through NATO.
Mr. Healey, you heard now that President Donald Trump said that was Ukraine started the war. What do you think about what Mr. Trump said?
Well, this war started because Russia invaded the territory of a sovereign state. This war is continuing because the Ukrainians are fighting with great courage, military and civilians alike. And this war could be ended today if President Putin withdrew his troops from Ukraine. We all want to see an end to the fighting. We all want to see a durable peace. We all recognise that peace must come through strength. President Trump has said that. President Zelensky has said that. And our special job as defence ministers is to continue to support Ukraine in the fight. We've been two European nations, providing strong military help to Ukraine. We will continue to do that, and we will step that up. And part of our discussions have been today about how we do so. And we are ready in the UK also to play a part if we get to a point where the fighting stops and security guarantees are required for the long term, because the one feature of any ceasefire and any peace is that it must not be something that is broken again by Russia re-invading Ukraine.
What do you think about the future for NATO now after Mr. Donald Trump said what he said?
For me, NATO has never been bigger, never been stronger. Putin wants to divide NATO, he wants to divide Europe, but 3 years on from his invasion of Ukraine, Sweden and Finland are part of NATO. In the last year, the non-US nations of NATO increased defence spending by 20%. So we are stepping up on European security. We recognised in the discussions that I chaired earlier this week in NATO that we must do more, and we will. That isn't just about how much you spend, it's about how you spend it. And NATO also needs nations like Norway, like the UK, ready to set new standards of how we work together, we plan together, we deter together, and if necessary, we will fight together.
Thanks very much, David Lynch from PA in the UK. This is mainly a question for John Healey. It's another one about Ukraine. So Donald Trump, he first suggested that Ukraine started the war, then he described Volodymyr Zelensky as a dictator, and he since claimed that Russia holds the cards when it comes to a peace talk. Can we trust that our most powerful ally still has Europe's best security interests at heart?
Well, Europe's best security interests and America's best security interests are satisfied by an end to this war in Ukraine and by a strong unified NATO. That's an argument that we are having and have discussed with the Americans and will continue to make. As far as the recent comments go, look, President Putin holds the cards in the sense that he could end the war if he withdrew his troops. He invaded Ukraine, he could end it. But President Zelensky, in my second day in the job as Defence Secretary, I flew to Odessa. I spent the afternoon with President Zelensky, and I saw for myself, first of all, his commitment to his country. This was a man, after all, who told President Biden, when Putin first invaded, I need ammunition, not a taxi. This was a man who stuck in his country, led his country, and still does. He was elected. He's the elected leader of Ukraine, and he's done what Winston Churchill did in Britain in the Second World War, suspended elections while at war. And our job is to stand with the Ukrainians, support the Ukrainians, support them in their fight and if they choose to talk, support them in the negotiations as well. And I'm a defence minister, and I don't want to see us jeopardising the peace by forgetting the war.
Can we still trust President Trump to help us accomplish those goals?
It's in President Trump and America's interests that we get a durable peace, as he's argued and pledged to deliver. It's in President Trump's and America's interests that the Euro-Atlantic area is stable, secure, and NATO is strong.
Okay, Heino, please.
Thank you. Mr. Healey and also Mr. Sandvik, how will you handle the absence of US defense support going forward?
There's no question of an absence of US support. US are a hardwired part of NATO. The US are challenging us as European nations, however, to do more alongside them. We are, and we will do more in future.
It's mainly the same answer, but also I want to underline that the Russian nuclear capacity at the Kola Peninsula is threatening US. We are in the same boat. We are doing this defense spending and the surveillance and the ears and the eyes in the high north of NATO together. We have common interests.
Okay, Vega.
Secretary Healey, your Prime Minister have indicated that the UK might be one of the countries that is setting up a force within Ukraine in case of a peace agreement. But if there is a peace agreement negotiated between only the US and Russia with no Ukrainian participation and no European participation, is it still actual for your foot to send British forces into Ukraine?
Well, first of all, there are no negotiations, there are just talks. Any negotiations about Ukraine have to be involved with Ukraine. And in many ways, we're jumping ahead of ourselves. Our Prime Minister has made the commitment that if we reach a ceasefire, we reach an end to the fighting, security guarantees will be needed, and Britain is ready to play a full part in that. And we're leading some of the detailed discussions about what may be needed, but I'm certainly not going to give you any detail that's going to make President Putin the wiser. Fundamentally, though, the war is still being fought. Russia is still bombing, firing on, launching drones, not just on Ukrainian troops, but on Ukrainian cities. The Ukrainians are still fighting, and our job is to support them in that fight, to keep them as strong as they can be when they come to the negotiating table. Support them on the battlefield, support them at the negotiating table when they choose to talk.
You were at the defense ministers meeting last week, and you also heard Secretary Hegseth was excluding the possibility for US peacekeeping forces in Ukraine. Is it still actual to have British forces on the ground in Ukraine if there is no American participation?
So you're asking me to jump ahead of where we need to go. But we in the UK and the important European nations recognise that we will need to play a leading part in any arrangements if we can reach an end to the fighting and some sort of settlement. We're the ones who have, from day one, been ready to step in and support Ukraine in their fight. We will support them as a peaceful country as they forge their future as well.
Thank you so much. We have to stop there, and now we're going on to one-on-one interviews. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mr. Healey, could I ask you one question?
I think we are.
You can ask me one question, and then you're trying your luck here.
High North News.
Right, okay. Come on, let's go.
Thank you so much.